Hey guys, I'm Janet on occasion, and yeah, so we're getting on with the campaign lore play. Obviously, you know, there's been a patch since, so Norska isn't in here, despite the fact you will probably have Norska right now. So yeah, so it's gonna be a little bit, might be a bit odd, you know, not see Norska hanging around, but you know, it's fine. You know, it's all about the lore, this series, and I just didn't have time to finish it. Is the annoying thing. I think it's gonna be a real problem when Total War 2 comes out. I start doing campaign lore plays for them, and then yeah, there'll just be constant DLC and patches coming in and breaking things. But hopefully it'll be alright. I was thinking maybe just doing like 4 consecutive lore play series. So I'll do, you know, 4 campaigns all at once. And just get the basics in for each you know, the starting factions. And then, you know, the odd minor faction, the nearby their starting location, maybe? And just sort of leave them all kind of unfinished. Just sort of finish when I cover the basics. But it'll be 4 different series, so it should cover the whole world, right? That's, you know, what I'm hoping. So, yeah. So anyway, let's talk about Kislev. So Kislev's actually in a bit of a weird spot in sort of the tabletop, because the most recent, at least I think, I have the most recent thing. The most recent book is actually just a White Dwarf supplement, but it's got a load of fluff, which is fantastic. But this is quite old, because the Kislev units were actually in the Empire battle books way back when. So we're talking like 3rd edition. There were a load of Kislev units, you know, in those army books. But yeah, it didn't really get updated. They didn't continue to be in the Empire. I think they made sure they were very distinct, sort of separate, you know, peoples. So when they started talking more about fluff, Kislev got left out. But luckily, this Kislev sort of supplement from White Dwarf magazine did actually sort of fill in all the blanks, and honestly it gave a more thorough description of Kislev than any battle book ever did, because the battle books used to be really light on fluff. They barely explained a thing. I think they mentioned like the odd, actually I'm not even sure they mentioned the odd famous battle. It was basically just statistics. It was basically just the rules, you know. All the fluff was, I guess, you got from novels and things like that. The army books really didn't cover much about sort of why everything is as it is. It basically just said, you know, halberds are halberds because they halberd. Here's their stats. So, a bit boring. But yeah, but this book's got a load of stuff covered. And I'm assuming, although it's very old, it's still canon because they've never updated Kislev. So yeah, should be fun. So, okay, the land of the Kislevites. Kislev lies to the northeast of the Empire, and is the most northerly civilized nation. It is bordered by the Empire to the south and west, the Sea of Claws to the west, and Troll Country to the north, and the World's Edge Mountains to the northeast and east. The northern border of the country is ill-defined, but many draw it at the River Linsk, which flows westward from the World's Edge Mountains to the Sea of Claws. While its border with the Empire has been established at the River Urskoy, named after the god Ursun, a tributary of the Talabek. The north of Kislev is barely distinguishable from Troll Country and the tundra beyond. More wooded to the east in the foothills of the mountains, some Kislev tribes travel further north than the Linsk, into the Troll Country and eastwards along the High Pass. It is a cold, infertile land, and most of the Kislevites who live here have a nomadic existence, moving constantly from one grazing ground to the next, much like the Marauder tribes of the Shadowlands. Further south, Kislev becomes more hospitable, though still chill for the entire year. More farmsteads can flourish in these lands, though quarried stone is in short supply, and so buildings tend to be of uncut rocks or wooden construction, giving them a rustic appearance which people of the Empire would consider backward and uncivilized. This is not so true of the mighty palaces and temples of the cities, with their distinctive gold onion-shaped domes and towers. There's actually a great custom map that's been released since I recorded all this for Kislev, with these great little onion sort of, you know, shaped domes on all the buildings. It's very cool. So that's part of the you know, big custom map compilation that you know, is very popular on Steam Workshop. So yeah, you should definitely check that out, because it looks as, you know, as you'd imagine it from the descriptions from this book, which is really cool. They've really stuck to the lore with that. So well played, whoever it was that made that map. Don't have his name to hand, and I can't really be bothered to look it up. Just go find it. It's great. And yes, I did have to fight that battle against Kolek, because I mean, it's hilarious, and it's Kolek, right? I'm gonna have a battle against all the legendary, you know, all the legendary lords, and that was hilarious. He got completely wasted by yeah, it was amusing. So yeah. There are 3 such cities in Kislev: Prague, Erengrad, and a capital that is also called Kislev. Each city has its own distinct history and personality, and so though they are all peopled by Kislevites, they have a character of their own. The capital of the nation, and seat of the Tsars and Tsarinas who rule the land, Kislev is the largest and most developed of the 3 cities. Situated close to the Urskoy, it is virtually on the border with the Empire, and many imperial customs and aesthetic values have influenced Kislev life, literature and architecture. Founded as the capital by the Khans and Khan queens of the Gospodar people in year 1, which is actually the imperial calendar 1524, so yeah, only 1,000 years ago. It has been besieged several times in its history, though has never fallen to an enemy. At the centre of Kislev lies the Volca Palaces, the hereditary seat of power rebuilt during the reign of Tsar Boris Volca, after the original palace, Gospodarin, was all but destroyed during the Great War Against Chaos in 778, and that translates to the imperial calendar 2302. So obviously this was when Magnus the Pious, fought off Chaos. Kislev bore the brunt of that invasion until Magnus got the Empire's act together. Anyway, as they always do, as they do in Total War as well. So and in the end times and in Storm of Chaos, just Kislev have got terrible time of things when it comes to Chaos. But they're so north, they're going to, aren't they? So Erengrad, originally the Ungol capital, when it was merely a walled town known as Norvard, and later overrun by the Gospodars. Erengrad is Kislev's main trading city and its largest port, situated on the coast of the Sea of Claws. Vessels from across the Old World, New World, and even Norska come here with goods, slaves, gems, and precious metals. Kislev does not have a standing navy as such, but the waters of the Sea of Claws are dangerous, despite the patrols of the Imperial Navy, and all merchantmen are armed in some fashion, many to the standards of other nations' warships, and can be pressed into service by the Tsarina when needed. Prague, also known as the Cursed City, Prague is the most northerly of Kislev's largest settlements, and has been overrun by the northern tribes several times. During the Great War Against Chaos, the walls and buildings themselves became so corrupted with chaos energy that they sprouted tentacles and eyes. Wailing screams echoed from rooftops, and the ground beneath the city shifted and writhed. After their victory at the siege of Kislev, the Kislevites razed Prague to the ground and rebuilt it. Though it is still rumoured that a dark taint remains there, the people of Prague are regarded as shifty and nervous by most outsiders, as well as paranoid and potentially in league with the dark powers of the north. Prague also acts as a rallying point for the scattered horse tribes in times of war, and has a considerable Ungol population. This has led to Prague attempting to cede from the power of the Tsars on 3 occasions. Twice the city was starved into submission by trade embargoes from the south, and on the 3rd occasion, the city was reclaimed by military force, and is now ruled by a Gospodar governor, responsible only to the Tsarina herself. And I've got to point out with Karl Franz here, with the new army that I gave him out of my reinforcements, he's just so useful. I knew I'd need Lightning Strike, and I gave him Lightning Strike. Alright, the guy's a brilliant tactician in general. So I think it makes total sense that after a massive battle like that, he'd just go and systematically wipe out, each smaller force. So that's what I'm going with, and I think it's working really well. So yeah, I'm basically just cleaning up with him, which is great. I'm really enjoying it. It's very fun. So anyway, let's move on to more Kislev stuff. So the Kislev calendar. So Kislev is in fact uses 3 dating systems: the Imperial calendar, the Gospodarin calendar, and the Ungol calendar. The Ungol calendar is now only used for the northern tribes and works on a principle of a 4-year cycle called an Ursa, dating from the time that the great bear god Ursun first awoke from hibernation. This date roughly equates to 500 years before Sigmar. Dates are also known to vary from tribe to tribe, so that while one tribe may say that the great chieftain Eskadar fought the battle of Linsk in 452, which is the Imperial calendar 1310, which was basically, the maths for that is 1310 plus 500 divided by 4. Another might say that it is 453. which is the imperial calendar 1312. So 2-year discrepancy, which seems odd. For these reasons, it is only of interest to scholars for its eccentricity more than its functional use. More widespread is the use of the Gospodarin calendar. Gospodarin? I don't know. Gospodarin, I believe. Calendar, which dates from the imperial calendar 1524, the founding of the city of Kislev. Since the Great War against Chaos, the imperial calendar has been growing ever more in its usage, and now it is common for dates to be given in both the Gospodarin calendar and the imperial calendar. So, the endless war. Kislev breeds hardy people, but not because of the harsh climate and generally infertile lands, but also due to the constant depredations by raiders from the Chaos Wastes. These are usually constant, small-scale affairs as individual war bands and tribes head south in search of glory and plunder. Known by the Kislevites as Kiazak, or Kayazak? I think Kiazak. These raiding parties are an ever-present threat to settlements and caravans north of the Linsk, and some even venture as far south as to cross the Linsk itself. The incursions are short-lived, lasting perhaps only for a season at a time, and either end when winter draws in, or they are driven back by the armies of the Kislevites. These armies are drawn from the scattered stanitsas and towns of the Kislev Oblast, which each province a standing force of warriors. Which each provide a standing force of warriors, much like a militia. Ungol horse archers patrol the most northern reaches of the country, while settlements with a great Gospodar heritage pool their resources to create squadrons, or rotas as they are known, of the famed winged lancers. This tradition is continued by the cities, and the Tsarina can command a large number of winged lancers drawn from the richest families and their household troops. So similar to knights, you know, in other nations, except not professional soldiers really, but they do come from the rich. So occasionally, a particularly powerful chieftain or warlord will rise in Norska, or amongst the tribes of the Kurgan people. The Kurgans aren't really in Warhammer Total War yet. They're further east. So they come over the World's Edge Mountains. They weld together a rough confederation of several tribes and launch attacks into Kislev. At these times, the various rotas of Kislev are drawn together into larger army groups called pulks. These pulks are invariably under the command of a noble of Gospodar heritage and are the closest Kislev has to a standing army. Sometimes a single pulk is enough to see off the threat, but other times 2, 3 or more pulks may combine their forces to counter an ambitious marauder warlord. During the Great War against Chaos, when the half-demonic warlord Azavar Kul drove his armies into Kislev, accompanied by legions of demonic creatures and bestial warbands, every pulk in the land was gathered to oppose the threat, and yet the Kislevites were sorely pressed to hold the tide. It is a testament to their stubbornness and pride that they held as long as they did, allowing an alliance of men, dwarfs and elves, led by Magnus the Pious, to break the siege of the capital and drive back the immense horde. Every year, the Kiazak grow more daring, their attacks driving deeper and deeper across the links, until the settlements outlying Erengrad and Kislev have come under threat. Yet the Kislevites and their ancestors have spilt blood every year to take and protect their lands, and whilst one Kislevite draws breath, there will be one who will defend against the northern hordes. So yeah, a very stubborn bunch. But then you'd have to be, wouldn't you, to live in such a just awful wasteland of a place. Just cold and constantly under attack. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? But, you know, proud people, and they've got beautiful cities with big domes and stuff, so it's fun. Allies of Kislev. Although Kislevites would like the world to think otherwise, their nation does not stand alone against the perils of chaos. Although they must endure the constant raids and attacks of the northern Marauders, in times of need, when the followers of chaos have gathered in great numbers, the Kislevites have received aid from others. Most commonly, forces from the Empire, and in particular Ostland, the Ostermark and Talabekland, march north to assist against these larger incursions. However, during the Great War against Chaos, when the hordes of the north stretched like a sea across the Taiga, the Elves and Dwarf came to the aid of the men. In return, it has been known for Kislevites to aid the Dwarfs, sometimes to clear the mountain passes, and in particular the High Pass, of foes such as Skaven, Greenskins and Marauders. Both respect the stubbornness they see in each other. though Kislevites cannot understand how dwarves can spend so much time underground, while a dwarf generally thinks that all the open sky drives the Kislevites a little bit insane. Though the great forests of the Empire give way to the increasingly desolate oblast of Kislev, the country is not without small woods and forests, some of which are rumoured to be the homes of isolated wood elf communities. The wood elves distrust all other races, even their own kin of Ulthuan, but when ancient foes rear their heads, they have been known to make common cause with others. There are very few incidents of this in Kislev history, but they are there. Battles against beastmen when unexpected wood elf allies have attacked the chaotic creatures from their hiding places, and occasions when a Kislev patrol has been drawn to the sounds of fighting to find a small wood elf community embattled by orcs or marauders. So I find that particularly interesting, because basically in sort of more modern sort of lore, I suppose, it's pretty much just, there are wood elves in Athelloren and that's about it. Let's not bother mentioning anything else. But of course, you find them in Lorelorn Forest as well, that have, sort of closer ties with, their sort of Ulthuan heritage. Supposedly, anyway. Supposedly there's a city in the Nordland there, in the Lorelorn, that no one has seen, which is very cool. But also, some wood elves in Kislev as well. And I just think it'd be great if we got sort of more of that in Total War, where they're just these little, even if it's just like events, like the occasional sort of horde army would spawn, sort of out of a forest, fight some of the bad guys, and then disappear again after 10 turns. I think that would be really cool. It could even be like, set to like a tech for, Kislev or something, They could just sort of like the Green Knight, They just sort of earn that through diplomatic relations with this invisible faction. And occasionally it would just spawn a small stack of wood elves that would help them out. I think that would be really cool. Same could happen with Lorelorn, but depending on how events went, maybe it would attack Nordland instead of, helping them out. So you could get really cool stuff like that happening through events, and I'd love to see something like that happen, to really show how diverse the world is. Because at the moment you just sort of assume that there's no other race sort of outside of each territory, but actually there's different races all over the place. Different little communities here and there. So it would be good to see that. But anyway, that's let's ignore that for now. So Kislev religion. So the Kislevites are descended from the human tribes that travelled from the Kurgan tribes of the north and the east. In particular, the Kurgan influence is still strong in the north, and the horse tribes share many traditions and customs with the likes of the Dolgans, Kazakhs, and other marauder tribes. The ancient traditions of these peoples are more keenly followed amongst the nomads, who see their southern cousins as weakened by the civilizing influence of the Empire. In this respect, worship of the various ancient Kislev gods varies across the nation, being more prominent in the north, while other gods have been incorporated into the Kislevite religion in southern lands. In addition, the Gospodars brought with them the cult of the bear god Ursun, which has been strongly established as the dominant religion of Kislev. As most of the Kislevite ancestry originated from the eastern steppes and the harsh northlands, their gods represent very important forces in their lives. Various nature and household spirits are worshipped all across the old world, but this is particularly strong in Kislev. These magical creatures are servants and messengers of the gods in this world, and should be treated as such. Kislev is almost two nations in one. On the one hand, there are the more civilized peoples of the south, and the cities, where the lands are relatively fertile. In the north, particularly north of the Linsk, there are the Nomad Tribes. At the time of Sigmar, the harsh lands northeast of the Erskoi were populated by the Ungol tribes, who also dominated the smaller tribes of the Ropsmen, who lived in what is now Troll country. Sharing many traits with the Kurgan steppe nomads to the east, the Ungols were scattered peoples consisting of nomadic horse-riding tribesmen. Sigmar's influence did not stretch this far north, and so they remained independent from the confederation of tribes founded by him. Circa 1500 of the imperial calendar, there was a large westward migration from the eastern steppes, and of particular importance was the arrival of the powerful and wealthy Gospodars. Torn with strife, the Empire was in no position to contest these lands, and the superior arms and tactics of the Gospodars drove the Ungols to the west and north, who in turn absorbed the Ropsmen completely. Over the following century, the power of the Gospodars grew, and the city of Kislev was founded. The settlement of Prague grew in size as the Gospodars used the Linsk to launch incursions into Ungol territory. eventually forcing the Ungol to accept Gospodar rule, who are now beginning to be called Kislevites after their capital city. By this time, the former Ungol city of Erengrad had grown into a busy port ruled by the Kislevites, and from here the Kislevites are able to sail the Sea of Claws, trading and fighting with the Norse, and on occasion the Empire, as well as keeping the Ungols in check. This state of affairs has existed for over 750 years. The Gospodar and Ungol society has merged over the centuries, to a greater or lesser extent, into the nation of Kislev. The ruling elite, from whom the Tsars and Tsarinas hail, are of Gospodar heritage. The influence of the Gospodar language and beliefs is more evident in the south, particularly in the cities of Kislev and Erengrad, while further north the land becomes more barren and the horse tribes still hold sway. In fact, Prague itself has been reclaimed by a large part of the old Ungol nobility, and in many ways is a separate power in the north. So let's, begins to talk about some of the people. But I want to talk about the, Ursun, really. There's some other gods that I will mention, but I do want to mention Ursun in particular, because he's the main one. And he's a massive bear, so, So, Ursun is the father of bears, which the ancient Gospodar held as sacred creatures. He is, unsurprisingly, most usually depicted as a massive cave bear, with a crown, teeth and claws of glistening gold. It is said that Ursun can take human form, and will appear as a burly, bearded man with an age-worn face, thick hairy arms and a great mop of hair, and wearing nothing but a loincloth. So depictions of a bear or a bear's face are most common, although worshippers of Ursun might also wear a medallion of gold shaped like a bear's claw. Devout followers of Ursun wear bearskin cloaks, or wear a bear's paw as a talisman. Amongst the northern tribes, it is not uncommon for Ursun cultists to wear a bear's skull over their helmets, or fixed to the front of their shields. So, probably get through a lot of bears, don't they? The temples. Ursun has no temples as such, but rough cairns and standing stones in the depths of forests have been raised over the centuries to honour him. Sometimes a cave once inhabited by a particularly large or fearsome bear will be turned into a shrine to Ursun, filled with rough lamps and offerings of fish and berries. In the cities, wooded areas are allowed to grow wild in certain parks and within the grounds of large buildings, and these are treated as areas sacred to Ursun. It is not uncommon for someone wishing to entreat aid from Ursun to nail a fish or hunk of meat to their door to attract his spirit. Also, it's got to attract a bit of a pong, doesn't it? So, there is much friction between the followers of Ulrich and Ursun. There is more a matter of pride than genuine animosity, as worshippers of Ursun and Ulrich have much in common, but contests of strength at arms and other physical rivalry is commonplace. There is much goodwill between the cult of Ursun and that of Tal, as they share a common border at the Talabek. Ursun worshippers think it a bit daft to worship all animals in equal measure, since bears are obviously the lords of the wild, while Tal cultists think it a bit strange to revere one animal above any other. However, on a whole, they share many similar rituals and beliefs. Generally, followers of Ursun are unconcerned with other religions, and many of the southern gods are seen by them as a bit soft and unworthy of praise. So some holy days as well. There are only 2 holy days of Ursun. The spring equinox, when cultists gather to rouse Ursun from his winter sleep with loud rituals, setting huge bonfires, roasting deer, drinking alcohol, and generally making as much racket as possible. And the autumn equinox, when the first harvest is offered up to Ursun, so that he might gorge himself and prepare for his winter's rest. I think it's actually quite similar to Ulrich. That one, they do have, they have a couple of holidays, one for, it's basically when winter begins and winter ends. Because, he's the god of winter, Ulrich. So, so similar, really, except, I guess it's the opposite, because the bear is awake when Ulrich is asleep, and hibernating when Ulrich's awake, so that's kind of cool, right? So there's some strictures as well. So never hunt a bear in the winter, let him sleep. Bears must always be killed by hand or arrow, no dogs or traps. Only wear the skin, claw or skull of a bear you have killed yourself. Again, that is very similar to Ulrich there. You can only wear, wolf pelts of wolves you've killed yourself. So that's pretty cool, right? There's a lot of similarities here. Eat fish at least once per week, but never eat fish or and other meat on the same day. That's novel. Never perform your ablutions indoors. So, very outdoorsman-y people. So, again, you know, that's going to tie into Tal, I guess. So that's kind of cool. So, there's also some other gods. There's Daz, which is D-A-Z-H. He's the god of fire and the sun. So that's kind of cool. It was Daz who took the secret of flame from the sun and gave it to the ancient warrior chiefs of the tribesmen. Without Daz's fire, the long winters would be fatal, and tributes and prayers are regularly offered up to him. In more civilized lands, he rules over the hearths of homes, and is also the patron of guests and the needy. Thus, hospitality to those who call engenders safety for a household, while a poor host or hostess may find that their fire will not start, or that their roof springs an unexpected leak. So, I like that, Daz is portrayed as a handsome youth, with long flowing hair and wreathed in fire. He is beautiful to behold, and none can look at him directly without being blinded by his divine appearance. He is said to live in a golden palace in the east, where he rests every night, after travelling the world during the day. In his palace he is accompanied by warrior consorts called the Arari, who can often be seen dancing and fighting for his amusement in the northern skies. And so he has the symbol of the sun, as you'd expect, and his temples are large, open arenas, so that worshippers may pay homage to their god under the sky, which he lives. So that's cool. Yeah, the cult of Daz is on genial terms with the other main religion of the old world, although there is some distrust between them and the worshippers of Ulrich, as he's the god of winter, and that sort of goes, you know, against the whole Daz thing of making winter hospitable. So, yeah, that makes sense. And then moving on, there's also Tor, T-O-R. He's the god of thunder and lightning. Sounds quite similar to Thor, doesn't he? So there's Tor, god of thunder and lightning, and is worshipped as a warrior god. He is portrayed as a muscled, square-jawed warrior. He wields a massive axe with a haft of oak, so not quite a hammer, but, you know, similar enough, and use it to cleave the sky to create the thunderbolts for which he is famed. A warrior god, Tor is the most active of the Kislevite gods, and quite frequently his name is used as a curse on others. For example, the phrase Tai Tor means by Tor, and is an exclamation of surprise. On the other hand, Do Tor means Tor's bolt, and is an entreaty for the god to unleash his anger upon the enemy. And obviously he's represented by a thunderbolt or an axe with a thunderbolt for a haft. You know, just imagine everything you know about Thor. You know, the Norse god. Not Norskin, but, you know, real world Thor. You know Thor. Imagine anything to do with him and just replace the hammer with an axe. You basically nailed it. So, also, there's... okay, then, actually, that's it for their sort of three main gods that are sort of, you know, outlined here. But there's also other worship as well. So, in most southern regions, other gods are worshipped in small numbers by some Kislevites. Most notable of these are Tal. After all, Kislev borders one side of the Talabek, his sacred river. And Ulrich. Even more than other old worlders, the Kislevites paid tribute to all manner of nature and household spirits who helped them in their daily lives, or set them tests to prove themselves. Little offerings and rituals are followed in a near unthinkable fashion to appease the various needs of these sometimes mischievous, but usually benevolent creatures. So that's kind of fun, isn't it? They worship a lot of different stuff. And I'm now realising that this is actually going to take more than one episode as well. And we still haven't talked about Talabeklan. So yeah, this series is going to keep going, isn't it? So anyway, I'll go over the Kislev bestiary. So this should be fun. The nation of Kislev is ruled over by the Tsars and Tsarinas. Currently the Tsarina Katerin, also known as the Ice Queen. Her father was Tsar Boris Boka, a fierce warrior and devout follower of the bear god, and known by many as Boris Ursus, or Radii Boka, which means the Red Boka. The most famed military units of Kislev are the Winged Lancer Cavalry, formed from the sons of the old Gospodar nobility. Amongst them are the Griffin Legion, an elite regiment consisting of the wealthiest knights, and often found fighting in the Empire. These are supported by archers and axemen on foot, and mounted horse archers from the Nomad Tribes. So that gives a very brief introduction, actually, to the to the units, which I'll carry on in the next episode. It'll be a episode whatever, .5. I can't remember what episode we're on. There's been so many now. But anyway, so I'll continue talking about Kislev in the next one, and then the next campaign, sort of footage one. Probably talk about either Ostermark or Averland. Not sure which yet. We'll find out. Either way, still more to cover, and I intend to cover it. So, guys, I guess if you enjoyed this video, then please do comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, guys.